of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded, called the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and Chaldeans, for to show the king his dream. So they came and stood before the king, and the king said to them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Shadrach, I think is the way you say that. O king, live forever. Tell thy servants to dream, and we'll show the interpretation. Now let's start right there, and let's just get those four verses and deal with them. So the very first thing that throws a curveball at us is it says, in the second year, the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? So you've already got your notes there, and I've got all these different people in your notes. Walvoord gives the chronological order of events concerning king, and that's Nabopolassar. That was King Nebuchadnezzar's father. Then King Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel's training. This comes from Wiseman and Thiel. The book that came from was The Mysterious Numbers of the Kings of the Hebrews. And then Fingan, Handbook of Biblical Chronology, I can't say it. So with that said, I don't know why, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I don't know why they use like a Gregorian calendar in part of it and a Jewish calendar in the rest of it, but they do. And I don't know if that's just how it works out for them. I don't know. I just know that's what they do. So May to June, 605 BC, Babylonian victory over the Egyptians at Carchemish, which is was Egyptian held. That's basically when Babylon takes over Egypt. Okay, that battle. That is a very important date line to know about King Nebuchadnezzar, by the way. June to August, 605 BC, the fall of Jerusalem to Nebuchadnezzar and the deportation of Daniel and his friends. Okay, so this is the first deportation, takes place somewhere around June to August. Okay. September 7th, 605 BC, Nebuchadnezzar made king after his father Nabopolassar dies. So this is the date that he starts to ascend to the throne. September 7th, 605 to Nisan, which is March, April 604 BC. This is the year of ascension of Nebuchadnezzar as king and the first year of Daniel's training. Mark your place right there and let me talk to you a minute. So the best thing that I know facts about that I can relate this to is if you were a Chinese person. If you were a Chinese person and you were born in October, okay, and you died in February, they would count that whole year as a year of your life because you made it past their new year. Okay, that's the way they do things. So we had a missionary back at the turn of the 20th century that was over there, and she lived to be 99, just short of her 100th birthday, and because she had served in China all those years, they went ahead and gave it to her. Okay, and so that's how I know about that. So a lot of times in antiquity, a king, his first year would be considered ascension, and until they got to their calendar year, that would be their first year. Okay, so that's when they would start counting. Not that half a year, but once he got to his first year, they would start counting that. So that's what they're talking about there. As the year of ascension for Nebuchadnezzar. That's how we're going to end up with the second year. Okay? Any questions about that? I don't know that I can answer them, but I can phone a friend. Okay? Yeah.
And that, like, January 1st, like, January 1st means the next year.
Right.
Like, 16th, January 1st,
Right.
even though the birthday was.
Right. Right. And so Korean is very close to Chinese descendant. They have a lot of the same cultures and stuff. So very good. All right. So then you drop on down past that. It says Nisan. So now we're going to start dealing with Jewish calendar. Nisan, March, April, 604 BC to Nisan 603, first year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign as king. Second year of Daniel's training. Then we come down to the next year, Nisan 603 BC to Nisan 602 BC, second year of King Nebuchadnezzar's reign, third year of Daniel's training, also the year of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Now, that explains how Daniel is going to die with the rest of the wise men. He's not just in training, he is considered one of them. Okay? So, anyway. Hopefully that'll be helpful. You can look at that. You can study these people. You can go look them up. These guys, they're a lot smarter than me, and you can read what they have to say there. All right? It says, verse 1, and in the second year of the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams wherein his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. So the dreams troubled him, and I believe he knew that the dream or the dreams were important. Okay? And so it kept him from sleeping. He was thinking about it. I don't know if you ever had dreams. I haven't dreamed in a long time. Really hadn't that I remember. They tell me you dream every night, but there was a while there, man, I mean, I was having some vivid, crazy dreams, And I started checking what I was eating, man. I thought Nita was feeding me something bad. Anyway, some kind of drugs or something. All right. But it messes with you. You sit there and try to think about them. I still think about some of them I had. Verse 2. Then the king commanded to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, the Chaldeans, for to show the king's dreams. So they came and stood before the king. Now, I've got y'all a big list of definitions of these people, and I was going to pull out the actual like what the word meant, but I didn't, and so I apologize for that. So magicians. Walvoord, on page 147 of his book, says the Hebrew word means stylus, which is do you know what a stylus is? Yeah, like a feather, a quill, a stylus. Okay. A stylus or a pen. So Leopold, because of that, Leopold, which Walvoord is using, says it could be a scholar rather than a magician in the normal sense. Phillips, on the other hand, says that magicians were those who wielded the rod of office. Their function was to repel demons and evil spirits by means of special spells and incantations. In other words, they dealt with magic, the art of reaching back into the mist of antiquity. That's page 44 and 45 of his book. And then Clarence Larkin, on page 31, says, magicians were such that practiced magic. That is, they practiced all the superstitious rites and ceremonies of fortune tellers, right? So then we got astrologers. Walvoord, which is not spelled like that, but spelled differently, used Leopold again. Astrologers is also translated enchanters, which I spelled wrong, referring to the power of necromancy or communication with the dead. But Young understood them to be astrologers, those who studied the stars. And in Phillips, he says astrologers were prophets who cast horoscopes and studied the stars, announcing the will of heaven and predicted the future. And in Clarence Larkin, astrologers were men who pretended to foretell the future events by studying the stars. Okay, I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to stick with Larkin and Phillips on this. I really believe that's what they were doing, but the word gives you a little bit different idea. Anyway, sorcerers, Walvoord says, are those who practice sorcery or incantations. Phillips, sorcerers or wizards. I like Phillips because he's always matter of fact, whether he's right or wrong. He feels based on God's death penalty, Exodus 22:18, witchcraft is proof enough that people can communicate with fallen angels. And then Larkin, sorcerers were such as pretended to hold communications with the dead. And I have down here in my notes, Witch Endor. 1 Samuel 28, verse 7. You remember Witch Endor? You remember that story? You know, she's calling up her familiar demon to look like whoever it is that, and act like whoever it is that people paying her to, they want to see. And God allows Samuel to come back from the dead. Blows her mind. She gets a new business probably. And anyway, so I do believe. Now listen to me, okay? So let's deal with something. I do believe that there are people who have the ability to communicate with demons, okay? And Anita and I was in New Orleans. Y'all sent us down there, I think 2013 for the Southern Baptist Convention. And we were coming through Jackson Square. And it was about 11 o'clock at night. And Lord, how mercy, you talk about feel the evil. They were just lined up with their tarot cards and their seances and their crystal balls. And I mean, you could literally you could feel the evil in that place as you walked through there. It was unreal. So I do believe there's people that play with demons, okay? I won't say the dead because I think when you dead, you dead, okay? Right. You're exactly. And we know that from, okay. Yeah, the only people that's ever come back has been the people God allowed to come back, and that was it. Hey. Yes, exactly. That's Luke 16. All right, so Chaldeans. Walvoord, this is the most significant term, usually refers to a group of astrologers, but also can refer to people from southern Babylon. Okay, so that's what we talked about last week. It refers to the people of Babylon, or it refers to a particular group, and that's what he's saying. Phillips also sees them as southern Babylon. He says that they're a special group, exclusively of Chaldean lineage. They were the elite and had special relationships to the temple of Baal Marduk, which is their main god of the Babylonians. Larkin again, the Chaldeans were a sect of philosophers who made the sciences their special study. It was also this class that Daniel and his companion belonged to. And if you look at my notes there, as you can see, there is some discussion on the groups of people here. Let it be known is what I meant to say there. All of the men are more studied than I that we just quoted from. Me personally, though, I would go with the simplicity of Larkin. I definitely agree with him on the Chaldeans, that Daniel belonged to this group based on chapter 1. And the null's not spelled right either. This would annul Philip's idea of lineage. So I think what we see overall is people messing with the occult. I think we can make connections to the things that we have going on here, like horoscopes and seances and fortune tellers and all of that kind of stuff. I think we could make connections with that, with this. At any rate, these four groups of people are supposed to be able to connect with the gods and predict the future. I believe Nebuchadnezzar knew he had been shown the future. I think that is what was bothering him so much. He knew he'd been shown the future, and he didn't know what it meant, okay? Verse 3. And the king said to them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. He wants to know what it means. Now, verse 4. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Shadrach, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants to dream, and we'll show the interpretation. Chaldeans speak Syriac. That is their language. Verse 4 of chapter 1, this is the group that the Hebrew boys were to join. They were to learn the language. Marty thinks that these guys represent all the languages of the captivities, or of the captives. Remember, Babylon has went out and they have captured the whole world, the whole known world at this time. Egypt, Jerusalem, Syria. What we call Persia now, the Medes. They have taken everybody under their umbrella. This is the first world empire. Okay? Let me tell you what they would do for entertainment. They would give some king some weapons and some horses, and they would actually prod them to rebel so they could attack them again. They were that bored. So they have all these people from all these different cultures. All right? So I believe the people that have to learn Chaldean, I think it's each culture has to come in and they have people that learn their language, their Chaldean. All right? So instead of the Babylonians having to learn multiple language of the captives had to learn so they could have representatives. This would give substance to the idea, and that's not spelt right, that they could keep their countrymen in line. We talked about that last week. That's kind of what they were hoping that the Hebrew boys was going to do. All right? So the king has sent for these guys. They say, you just tell us the dream, and we'll interpret it. Verse 5, the king answered and said to the Chaldeans, this thing is gone from me. If you will not make it known unto me the dream and the interpretation thereof, you shall be cut into pieces, you and your houses, and be made a dunghill. All right? So he threats to destroy them. He's also going to give them a blessing if they can do it, okay? So verses 5 through 13, I just kind of give you an overview of this. This is an exchange, shows a lot about the group and the king. The king is very smart. He evidently has suspicion this group to be charlatans, as seen in chapter 1, verse 5, where they're very well fed. They're given a good place to stay. They're protected. They're given an education, and now the king wants some dividends. So let's read verses 5 down through 8 and see this exchange that they have. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, this thing is gone from me. If you don't make it known unto me, and the interpretation thereof, you're going to be cut into pieces. Your house shall be made a dunghill. But if you show me the dream and the interpretation thereof, you shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therein show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. So he's encouraging them. Look, I'm going to give you rewards if you'll. So go ahead and show it to me. You're supposed to have the answers. And they answered again and said, let the king tell his servants to dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. And the king answered and said, I know of a certainty that you would gain the time because you see this thing is gone from me. All right? So he knows that they're stalling for time. Now, I want to say one thing. You see that up there where it says dunghill? I was reading a book a long time ago. It's one of the first great big books I ever read. I checked it out at the library in Asheboro. And it was The Discovery of Nineveh. That was the name of the book. And as I was reading about this took place in the 1800s, middle 1800s. I think it was like 1847 or 8 or 9, something like that. Guy's name was Leonard. And I'm reading it. He's like the first archaeologist. And he works for England. The Brits controlled all of that area over there. And he's on a riverboat, and he keeps seeing these piles of stuff on the side of the river. And I said to myself, when I saw that in that book, I said, this is people's houses where they've been heaped up. So he gets out and he gets to digging around in them, and he starts finding bricks and artifacts and stuff. And long story short, he meets a guy that tells him, so why are you digging around them little ones? I know where some big ones are at. And he actually takes him out to the ruins of Nineveh. And he's the first person to dig in Nineveh. And they found all kinds of magnificent stuff. You ought to read the book. It's great. But anyway, dung hills. So they'd heap them up. That's what they done. They heaped them up. All right. Verses 8 through 10. The king answered and said, I know of a certainty that you gain time because you see this thing is gone from me. But if you will not make known unto me the dream, there's but one decree for you. For ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me till the time be changed. So what does he mean by the time be changed? Yeah, they're stretching it out, but for a reason, and it's in that word there, or that phrase, till the time be changed. Either that or the fact that the king will get something else on his mind, and there'll be something else more important to deal with. Yeah, exactly. And so therefore tell me the dream, verse 9, and I shall know that you can show me the interpretation thereof. And the Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king this matter. Therefore, there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asketh such a thing at a magician, astrologer, or Chaldean. Now, a lot of stuff in that little bitty section, so let's just deal with it. This probably deals with the details. When he says the dream is gone or the thing is gone from him, probably deals with the details. But the abstract of his dream is still there. Okay? Now, common sense is why I say that. No doubt the king could remember enough that if they're going to try to pull the wool over his eyes, he could recognize it, you know? So he knew a little bit, but he didn't know the details. Philip says, truly this king was no fool. He had suspected his professional magicians and astrologers of fraud and seized a golden opportunity to put them to the test. Page 46 of his book. Phillips goes on to tell about Chaka. Now, y'all going to like this story, so y'all just hang on to me. The powerful Zulu, they called him Napoleon, who likewise put his witch doctors to the test of smelling out the guilty party or part of the people who smeared blood in his hut. So now let me tell you what happened. Do y'all know about Zulus? You know about this guy. I didn't know about him either till I read it. Okay? So this king was having a hard time with the witch doctors. The witch doctors had a lot of power over the people because they were afraid of the mysteriousness of them, and so they could go against what the king wanted. And so he decided he was going to put them to the test. And he was going to give them enough rope to hang themselves. So the king goes inside of his hut, and he paints blood all over the inside of his hut. And he goes away, and he comes back. And when he comes back, he goes into his hut, and he just has a conniption. Who has defiled my living quarters? And so he summoned all the witch doctors up there. And he says, y'all need to smell out these culprits that are conspiring against me. And so they go through and they do all their, and they're smelling the people, and they're picking people up, making them stand up, and the people are protesting, and they end up with about 100. If you know anything about the Zulus, there's a big group of people over in Africa, and end up with about 100 Zulus standing up. These are the ones that need to be put to death. They're the guilty ones. And the king said, I'm the one that painted it. And so then he turned the 100 people that had been charged that was going to lose their head, wrongfully, and said, now you take vengeance out on these witch doctors. Okay, so a very similar thing. All right, so that was a pretty cool story. Phillips had that in his book. I like that. All right, verses 10 through 13. The wise men are basically saying, all this training you've given us, the money and the food and the resources, we can't do magic. We can't talk to the deads or the gods or predict the future. That not produce, but predict the future. So all that money was wasted. Okay, that's basically what they're saying. We can't do these things that we say we can do. All right. Verse 11, we'll read verses 11 down through 13. And it's a rare thing for a king to acquire, and there's none other that can show it before the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious and commanded to destroy the wise men of Babylon. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. All right, so now that's where we're going to find ourselves at. We got 10 minutes. We're going to find ourselves to verse 24 in 10 minutes. Verse 14, then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which had gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hastily from the king? Then Arioch made this thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time and that he would show the king the interpretation. This is how we know, this section right here is how we know that he was through his schooling, because he was considered one of them. Then Daniel went to the house and made this thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire the mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. So, I want you to look at verses, what I got here in your notes, 14 through 18. Daniel finds out about the dream and the decree to kill all of the wise men. 3 things, and things don't have but one eye. Daniel's confidence in God, verse 16. All right. Then Daniel went in to desire the king that he would give him time and he would show the king the interpretation. He knew that God would give him the answer. He had confidence in God. Second, the dependence on prayer. He goes back and he tells his 3 Hebrew friends, okay, to seek the mercies of God. That's verses 17 through 18a. And then Daniel's concern for others. And this is the last part of 18b, of 18. It says that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Does anybody have anything but a King James tonight? Okay, well, I've got an ISV here in your notes, so look what it says. Daniel was seeking mercy in order to ask about the mystery in the presence of the God of heaven, so that Daniel and his friends might not be executed along with the rest of the advisors of Babylon. I'm going to give you something. You know, we've been trying to make application as we've been going along how we apply it to our world today. Well, Daniel didn't just seek his own welfare. He also sought the welfare of those around him. And he tried to help as many people as he could. Now, this is not Unitarianism. This is he's trying to help as many people as he can and to keep people from being slain for no reason. All right? Verses 19 through 23. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings, setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom to the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O thy God of my fathers, who has given me wisdom and might, and has made known unto me now what we desire of thee. For thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter. Okay, so let's stop there and let's dive into this. Walvoord says the night vision is not a dream. Okay, he said it's a supernatural revelation given to Daniel while he was awake. I have to agree with him. Okay, a vision and a dream is two different things. How many of you have heard when you stand before the bema seat, your whole life's going to be up on the screen? Okay, I mean, that's kind of what's going on. He's seeing in vivid detail like a movie running. Okay, it's not a dream, but a supernatural revelation given to Daniel while he was awake. He believes a vision was required because the image was a concept and it needed an interpretation. And so he needed to know what was going on. And so what Daniel may have seen, you remember when Jesus was tempted? I know y'all do, especially ladies, because y'all just studied that not long ago. But you remember when Jesus was tempted? He was taken up on a high mountain and showed what? All the kingdoms of the world. Okay? And so Daniel may have been able to see these four kingdoms or these four empires. Okay? I don't know. I'm just telling you. Because he definitely is able to give the interpretation thereof in a minute. Okay? One thing I want to, well, no, I'll say it in a minute. Matter of fact, I might say it next week, and that way I have time to look at something I need to look at. Notice Daniel's response. 4 verses of praise before he tells anyone. Now his head is on the line. I mean, this king ain't playing around. He means business, man. But Daniel stops and he praises God for everything he can think of to praise God before he goes and tells anybody. God's praise for answered prayer was more important than Daniel's life or anybody else's life. Isn't that something? What does that tell us? God answers prayer all the time. Man, we need to be praising God and giving him glory whenever he answers prayer. Even if we don't like the answer. We need to praise him. Man, when we come to church, worship, I love what we worship. Worship service, we ought to be letting our hair down and worshiping God because he is worthy of our worship. Okay? Now, let's see what happens here. It says his first order of business was to praise the one who answers prayer. Verses 19 through 20, blessed be the name of God of heaven forever. Let's look at those 2 verses real quick, 19 and 20. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. You need to, if you write in your Bible, you need to mark that right there with what I'm getting ready to tell you. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. Okay? Now, blessed be the name of God of ever. This is very important, especially considering where Daniel is. Where's Daniel at? He's in Babylon. So that means Israel's been defeated. And what the interpretation of the dream is. Now, we're going to learn that the interpretation of the dream is the 4 Gentile empires that's going to come. Okay? The God of Daniel is not an impersonal demon like the Babylonians' gods. He's the God of heaven. Okay? This title appears for the first time. This is what you need to mark over there in your Bible. This title appears for the first time in 2 Chronicles chapter 36, verse 23. If we had our Bibles turned to there, you would find that is the very last verse in 2 Chronicles. Okay? You would find that Cyrus is the one that is actually speaking that verse. So it's added to after Chronicles is finished, okay? This is the last verse of the Hebrew Bible. So the way the Hebrews Bible is laid out, 2nd Chronicles is the last book. So the last verse they see is a statement about the God of heaven, and it's made by Cyrus, a Gentile. That's the last thing they see in their Bible when they read their Hebrew Bible today. Okay? Now. It appears because God has withdrew his presence from the children of Israel. They became Lo-Ami, not my people. This title belongs to the Gentiles. In other words, the God of heaven belongs to the Gentiles and is spoken first from a Gentile. This is when God rules from heaven and not from between the cherubims. While Israel's a nation, God meets with them where? It's what kind of kingdom? Yes, it's a theocracy. It's a theocratic kingdom. It's ruled by God by his law. And he meets with his people. But now his presence is gone from Israel. We see that in the book of Ezekiel. He comes up, he hovers over Jerusalem, over the temple, and then he goes down through the valley of decision, and he's gone. That's the Holy Spirit leaving. Ezekiel records that as he's leaving. Ezekiel's whose contemporary? Yeah, but Daniel. He's Daniel's contemporary. And it goes, the Holy Spirit leaves. Okay? And so now he's the God of heaven, ruling from heaven, not from between the cherubims. Okay? It's a clear turn to the Gentiles. That's what I want you to see. Okay? Several things he says. I told you we was going to be done in 10 minutes. We're not. There's 7 things that Larkin points out that Daniel praises him for. Wisdom and might are his. He changes the times and the seasons. He sets up kings and removes them. He gives wisdom to the wise, knowledge to them that have understanding. He reveals secret things. He knows what dwells in the darkness, and light dwells with him. We don't know what's in the darkness. You don't know what tomorrow holds. How's that? But he lives in the light of tomorrow. He can direct us today. He can give us wisdom and knowledge today. There's a lot of people that count themselves wise and they're fools. There's a lot of people that say knowledge and there's no knowledge to it. I was just watching this thing about this new telescope that they've got. Oh, it ain't going to come to me. What's the name of it? But it's this new telescope that they've got out in space. And this is what the thing said. This new telescope is proven or casting doubt on what we know about evolution and the Big Bang. Well, if it's what you know, it can't cast doubt on it. Okay? And they talked about what they know and what they know and what they know is being proved wrong. Okay? So they don't know anything. All right? All right. You get what I'm saying. Daniel acknowledges that God changes the times and he sets up kings. This would be encouraging to him and hope for his people. It would also give him courage to stand before the king, not only in what he's got to do now, but because, you imagine, I'm going to stand up in front of Nebuchadnezzar and say, well, guess what, dude? Your kingdom going to be destroyed. No, that ain't going to be good. All right? And here he is. Remember, he's probably 15-ish when he's taken away. He's less than 20 now. He's 18-ish, 17, 18, 19 years old. This boy is going to stand in front of the most powerful, unpredictable man in the world and tell him your kingdom is coming down. I'm going to show you something special about that when we look at it. But anyway, we'll pick up in verse 24. I told you we wouldn't get no further than that, didn't I? Yep. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but it is a good point that he asked for time and it was granted to him. So again, Daniel's getting favor with the king. And I think part of that was his confidence standing before the king and saying, I will give you the interpretation of your dream. Because he had no hope of getting the dream interpreted at this particular point, because all of what he was putting his hope in was dashed. So Daniel's giving him hope. You know, I will interpret it. You just give me a little bit of time. And so anyway, and I mean, Daniel had nothing to lose. I mean, he's going to lose his head anyway, so you might as well say, hey, I can do it, you know. And if God don't come through for you, you just die. But I think the man knew that his God had him there for a special reason. And so anyway, let's pray.